So this is the 2019 Nissan Rogue SL with all-wheel drive, and this is Nissan's new ProPilot Assist feature right here. The system has two basic functions. First, when cruise control is set, the Rogue will adapt its speed to match the vehicle in front of you. This includes bringing the vehicle to a full stop if needed, which is something Toyota's adaptive cruise control can't do yet. It's actually a bit nerve-wracking to try this out for the first time. I definitely had to keep my foot kind of hovered over that brake just to take over in case the system screwed up, but it actually worked pretty well. One thing I did notice, though, is that you can't depend on the car to stop in all situations. So, for example, the system can only sense vehicles that are about 25 to 50 meters in front of you. So, when you're approaching a car at a stopped light, ProPilot won't start to slow the vehicle down until you get about 25 meters away. And that's not enough distance if you're traveling at like 45 miles per hour or more. Because remember, the system doesn't sense speed limit signs or traffic lights. It only senses the cars that are directly in front of you. With that being said, it does work really well in moderate traffic situations when you're following vehicles relatively closely. In those situations, the car will slow and stop for you perfectly, and it's actually pretty fun to have the car stop for you because, I mean, you don't even have to push that brake pedal, it's just really strange when you first start doing it. You do, however, have to hit that accelerator when you want to get the car going again. At least, that's how I think it works. I realized after I shot all this footage and when I actually returned the car to Enterprise that I had the auto hold feature on the entire time. That's the feature that allows you to take your foot off the brake once you bring the vehicle to a full stop, and then that system will keep the vehicle stopped until you hit the accelerator. It's a great feature, but well, I'm sorry I wasn't smart enough to turn it off when I was testing out the ProPilot system. So the second feature is steering assist. This is actually a separate technology that has its own on and off button on the vehicle. When it's activated, the car will sense the lines on the road and keep you in the center of the lane. And I do mean the center, which is kind of strange because I do a lot of my driving on kind of country roads, just two-lane highways. And I tend to keep myself kind of on the far right of the lane to give myself just a little bit extra distance from the car coming towards me. But this technology keeps you in the direct center of the lane, which can be a little strange in certain situations. Now, it works great, but there are a couple limitations. For example, when you're on a road like this, where there are only lines on the left-hand side of the road and a curb on the right, the system can't sense the curb, so it'll shut itself off automatically. The same is true when you're on an older road where the lines are sort of like wearing out and maybe flaking off. The system has a little bit of trouble there. But if you're on a pretty standard road where there's well-drawn lines on both sides of you, so maybe on a highway or something similar, the system works great, and it'll keep you in that lane pretty much perfectly. And that includes when the car is going around gentle curves like this. So the car will actually steer itself through the entire curve, which is pretty amazing when you're on the interstate because, I mean, the car is braking for you, accelerating for you, and steering for you, so you really don't have to do much at all. One thing you should note, however, is that you do have to keep your hands on the steering wheel at all times. And I don't mean just resting your hand on the steering wheel. You do have to give it a little bit of feedback by kind of moving the steering wheel gently just a little bit now and then. Otherwise, if you don't do that, within a few seconds a warning is going to pop up on the gauge cluster. A few seconds after that, the car is going to start beeping at you. If you ignore that, then the car is going to actually start brake checking. So you're going to be kind of like shoved forward a bunch of times because the car is going to brake suddenly. And then if you ignore that, well, the car is going to sound an alarm, it's going to flash the hazards, it's going to slow the car all the way down to a stop in the middle of the road. It doesn't have the ability to turn you off and put you on the shoulder, so it's just going to stop the car right in the dead center of the road. I don't know why, but I found this whole setup pretty fascinating, so I did it a couple of times. So let me show you kind of what it looks like without me talking over it at all. So this only happens if you don't touch the steering wheel. I mean, once you touch the steering wheel and just turn it ever so slightly, all the warnings stop and the system resets and starts steering for you all over again. That's kind of fun. I'm curious to see what other manufacturers are going to do, because I bet they all have sort of a different take on what's going to happen if you take your hands off the steering wheel for an extended period of time. Anyway, all in all, this system is pretty fun to play with. I know I had a blast with it. It's not perfect, but I think it does give you a nice taste of what's to come, because I have a feeling sooner rather than later we're going to see this in a lot more vehicles. And partially because it's kind of exciting and interesting, but also because, at least for me, I felt comfortable with this technology pretty quickly. I mean, that first time I came upon a stoplight and I wasn't the one braking the car, I freaked out a little bit. But after I did it a couple of times, I had no problem relying on the car to steer for me and brake for me, which is, I think it's pretty interesting. Anyway, that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you join me next time when I rent and review my 122nd rental car. I'll see you then.